Thank you, Stephen. Morning, everybody. I want to correct something that was up here previously, and that is that the speakers here are unbiased. I want to make it perfectly clear to you that I am as biased as it gets. I am biased toward natural health. I am biased toward preserving and protecting the natural environment. I am biased toward humanity. I am biased toward being compassionate. I'm biased toward indigenous native peoples who've been on the ropes forever since invasion. I'm biased about a lot of things. And I'm going to spend all of my time here this morning telling you about my biases in great detail. So if objective is what you're looking for, you actually came to the wrong presentation. I want to make the case through some examples that natural medicines are profound and powerful and significant in a myriad of ways. You ask yourself, what is our relationship with plants? We eat them as foods, grains, beans, nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables, oils, etc. We wear their fibers. We build homes out of plants. We furnish our homes with plants. We adorn our homes with plants. We extract essences from them that we wear as fragrances. And we utilize plants as medicines. And to the best of our ability to determine, from the time human beings ever first wandered around on this planet, they have experimented with and utilized medicinal plants. Otzi the Iceman, you know about him? Body discovered in a cave in Austria a number of years ago of somebody from a couple of thousand years ago. And he was carrying a medicine satchel with samples of 4 different medicinal plants. We know that medicinal plants have been used for a long time. There was a somewhat legitimate criticism decades ago that there wasn't enough science on plant medicines. That complaint is completely bogus now. There are hundreds of thousands of scientific papers. There are many, many hundreds of double-blind, placebo-controlled human clinical studies. We know with absolute certainty that there's very, very good reason that plant medicines are still the #1 category of medicines on Earth in use today. Now, if you watch television, if you pay attention to any popular media, you could get the impression that the world runs on Zantac, that the world runs on Aleve, that ibuprofen is your best friend, that you better ask your doctor about the little purple pill, and on and on and on. We are awash in pharmaceutical crap. And our job is to keep to the best medicine on Earth today, the safest medicine on Earth today, the one that is not a grand toxic experiment on the population of the people, but plant medicines which have demonstrated efficacy and safety, sometimes for thousands of years. So these are the biases that I want to share with you today. I also want to take you on a little bit of a journey. I'm very fortunate. I get to travel the world. I get to go to indigenous native places. I've been to the Amazon about 35 times. I've worked in Siberia, Syria, Congo, all over China, the South Pacific. I've had to do strange things. I've had to eat foods that are just utterly weird or disgusting or baffling somehow. I've had to participate in native rituals of all different kinds, fire walking, etc. I've been chased by pirates. I have guns stuck in my face, all the usual riffraff that happens out there. And, you know, whether my attitude is good or bad, fortunately, I've been able to go through it all and come back with stories, and more importantly, come back with a greater understanding of people. I love the plants. You must understand, when I go to the Amazon, when I go to Vanuatu, South Pacific, when I go to Syria, when I go to wherever, I genuinely love the plants. But it's the people who really slay me. It's the generosity, the hospitality. I've been to places where family of friends have said, you shouldn't go there. And I just get treated with immense respect and kindness and courtesy and the kind of generosity that I confess I haven't extended to people that way. I mean, when my wife and I went to Vanuatu, South Pacific 5 years ago, after my not being there for a few years, my friends did the only thing that made sense. They built a house for us because we were going to be there for a week. I mean, a house, like a 2-room house. Idyllic James Michener kind of novel, South Pacific house, you know, made of bamboo, beautiful windows and doors and the whole bit. That's the kind of generosity I face. And I really do feel that the tremendous privilege of doing this work gives me a responsibility to share in meaningful ways. So I want to take you on a little bit of a journey. I talked about ashwagandha yesterday. I talked about it being referred to as the king of herbs. I want to go into this a little bit more deeply. I've got about 5 botanicals in this presentation, and depending on how much I wander off and digress and interrupt myself will determine whether I get through this or not, but I appreciate you being here. So this is 2 men in the eastern Ghats of southern India digging up an ashwagandha plant. It is the root that is used, and as I will describe to you, this has been employed for a long time, over thousands of years, by hundreds of millions of people with tremendous safety. Can't say the same thing about modern pharmaceuticals. You cannot say that. By the way, a digression. Who invented the recreational drug ecstasy? Anybody know? Merck Pharmaceuticals. Who invented heroin? Bayer. Heroin was the cure for morphine addiction. Anybody here know any morphine addicts? Okay, 1. It's mostly heroin addicts now. So it worked. The #1 purveyor of cocaine in the United States, the one that really got it going, Parke-Davis Pharmaceuticals. Who invented LSD? Sandoz Pharmaceuticals. Who invented psilocybin? Sandoz Pharmaceuticals. If you want to know where drugs of all kinds come from, look to the pharma companies. But we're going to spend our time in nature's pharmacy. Ayurveda, which means the science of life, and I'm going to get rid of this sport jacket. It does me no good. You don't care, right? I've shown that I can sort of, kind of dress up a little bit. I consider that job well done. All right. Ayurveda, the science of life, is about 5,000 years old. It is the oldest fully articulated healthcare system in the world. The deity that you see represented on the wall here, it will appear any place that Ayurveda is practiced. This is the god Dhanvantari. It's convenient to have 4 arms, by the way. Dhanvantari has a conch shell in one hand to blow the note of truth, has a wheel of energy, a chakra in the other one, for dynamism and human vitality, has a pot containing the elixir of life, and also has a leech for bloodletting. And Dhanvantari, just like in traditional Chinese medicine, you'll see a representation of a dragon, the symbol of immortality. In the case of Ayurveda, you'll always see a representation, a statue, an image, a drawing, a painting, something of Dhanvantari. Ashwagandha refers to the roots of Withania somnifera. And this plant, while not exclusively native to India, is most popular in India and is most popularized in India. It's been used for about 4,000 years that we know of. And here's the thing about the science of Ayurveda. 7,500 plants are employed in Ayurveda. And #1 is ashwagandha. An Indian doctor who had been in clinical practice for over 30 years said to me, ashwagandha is the one thing I know I can give to anybody, any age, any condition, and never worry about causing them harm. This is utterly safe. You look at the safety data on this stuff, it's all but mother's milk. I did a lot of exploration of ashwagandha starting in the 80s in India, and I went to a very unusual medicinal plant garden, and there may be 2 or 3 places like this in the world. This is on a mountaintop called Dodabetta Peak. And what they did was they made a huge, about 1 acre or so, outline of a human being. And then they filled in the various parts of that outline in the interior with medicinal plants that matched the organ location or joints or the brain. Ashwagandha showing up in the brain part of this. The other person who did something similar is the now deceased Dr. James Duke, who was one of the greatest botanists of all time and a tireless medicinal plant advocate who was also a friend and a mentor. But Dodabetta Peak is a great thing. I mean, I only wish that I could have been above it in a helicopter to see it from that vantage point. But it's a remarkable way to show, you know, digestive plants, eliminative plants, plants that help with joint inflammation, maybe plants good for gout, etc., all in their place in this human figure. Many years ago, especially about 20 years ago or so, there was great concern that ashwagandha was being over-harvested from the wild. Supplies were going down, the market was a little tight, and the Indian government and University of Bangalore, India, Bangalore is where all the call centers are. When you call United Airlines or you call somebody for some help, you get somebody in Bangalore who calls himself Johnny. Which is fine, you know, the phone system works. But, you know, it's like, it's okay. I know your name's not Johnny. You can just tell me. It's all right, Ravi. But in any case, they did this joint project where they had about 100 acres of medicinal plant seedlings, as you see here. And what they allowed people to do was come to this garden and take as many seedlings as they wanted, including the ashwagandha seedlings, bring them back home and cultivate these medicinal plants to stimulate personal use, community use, and also those people who make medicinal preparations in their villages or in their areas. A great, great thing. Now you might wonder why I have a picture of this guy stirring this pot. And I want to describe to you how traditional knowledge has figured out things that we say in a different way. If you wanted to make a certain recipe, you might say, cook at 350 for 8 hours. That would be quite a lot of cooking, but just go with me on this. 2,000 years ago, they didn't have clocks and they didn't have temperature. So what did they say instead? This man is making chawanprash. Anybody who's spent time in an Indian household knows that there is no such thing as an Indian household that doesn't have a jar of chawanprash in it. It's a medicinal jam made from the amla fruit, very high in vitamin C, tangy and tart. It also always contains ashwagandha root. They didn't have cook at 350 for 8 hours. So they said instead, use a brass pot the thickness of a grown man's thumb. You look at that metal, you can see that's about right. As wide across as 2 forearm lengths. Okay. As deep as from fingertip to wrist. All right. Place the recipe in there at thigh height and cook above 4 burning neem logs from sunrise to sunset. Translation, cook at 350 for 8 hours. Anybody who knows anything about fire, knows anything about heat, knows anything about cooking, knows that different metals have different heat conductivity. And the thickness of metals will determine how quickly that heat is dispersed. And anybody who owns a fireplace or who burns fires anywhere at all knows soft woods burn cool. Hard woods burn hot. So if you figure out, oh yeah, you know, for this I really want to cook with maple, I need a really high heat. That's how people figured these things out. So what I want to say to you is there's nothing primitive about traditional knowledge. It's just expressed in a different way. So ashwagandha's names are here. I'm not going to read these slides to you. I want to direct your attention to ashwagandha, meaning smells like a horse. And so there are people thinking, I'm not getting that supplement. I don't want to smell like a horse. Not how it works. If you pull the fresh root and you break it open, you get this aroma that's kind of like a freshly exercised horse. In the traditional texts of Ayurveda, they also said ashwagandha gives you the strength of a horse. It's classified as a rasayan, a life extender, specifically something that rejuvenates the brain. And this is the most widely employed of all medicinal plants. And I will just preview something that now it is very, very widely cultivated because of popular international demand. So we know a lot about ashwagandha. We know that primary agents in ashwagandha of interest in terms of its adaptogenic effects, helping us to adapt to all forms of physical and mental stress, primary agents are the withanolides. We know that it also contains chlorogenic acids, which also we see in great concentration in coffee, which is what makes coffee the greatest healthy elixir in the world. We see other agents of all different kinds. We know that traditionally this is used as an aphrodisiac. It's used for anti-aging purposes. It's used as a treatment against asthma, and it's used for overall rejuvenation. And there is a lot of science on this, and that's what I want to convey. Today, right now, we have a massive body of science corroborating these benefits. And by the way, I always grit my teeth when I hear people say, well, scientific studies have validated this. Baloney! This stuff was valid in the first place. Scientific studies have corroborated this. Using a different language and different methods, scientific studies have shown, yes, indeed, this is of benefit to sexual health. Yes, indeed, this helps to stimulate overall energy and vitality and relieve fatigue. Yes, indeed, this can help people with some respiratory disorders. It's corroboration, it's not validation. The traditional use is what to look at, and the scientific explanation gives people confidence today. The biological activities of this root, it's an adaptogen. It helps you to adapt to all forms of physical and mental stress. And it does this primarily by bringing cortisol, a stress hormone, down into a healthy mid-range. We all need cortisol to live. No cortisol, no walking around upright on planet Earth. So we need it. But once it goes over a certain line, it becomes an irritant, it becomes inflammatory, and it becomes stress-inducing. And we know from studies that you can bring that cortisol down, and then what happens? It's kind of like getting off an angry horse. You ever been on an angry horse? I had a hellish horse ride with a horse that was just pissed off and hated me. And it was really, really annoying and, frankly, scary and dangerous. And when I got off, I was relieved. I was like, oh, man, okay, that was terrible. When the stress goes, you realize how wired you've been. And you don't lose any energy. In fact, you liberate energy, and I'll get to that. It's profoundly anti-inflammatory. Why do we care about that? Because every chronic degenerative disorder you can name, whether it's cavities or diabetes, involves inflammation. Inflammation, is part and parcel of joint discomfort. It's part and parcel of cardiovascular disease. It's part and parcel of neurodegenerative disorders. It's part and parcel of virtually every chronic disease you can name. If you can control inflammation, and fortunately we have many anti-inflammatory herbs, probably the greatest of all being turmeric root containing curcumin, we can control this extreme risk factor. It's antioxidant. Every plant is antioxidant. That's the big news. You just want plain old antioxidants, drink beer and eat apples. You got it. But, I say we're classifying antioxidants all wrong. Yeah, sure, okay, they inhibit oxidation. That's good. But look at the specific capacity of different antioxidants. Green tea polyphenols reduce the risk of many forms of cancer. Antioxidant compounds in chocolate, we know, reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, specifically heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure. We know this to be so from human studies. We know that lutein, for example, is especially good for the eyes. We know that lycopene is good for the prostate. So really, instead of looking at the 20 or so thousand compounds that we know as antioxidants and going, antioxidant, let's think about them in terms of other, even more viable biological functions, like saving your life by reducing the risk of colorectal cancer, for example, in the case of the chlorogenic acids in coffee. That's a killer. Anxiolytic, helps to relieve anxiety, improves relaxation and sleep. The botanical name is Withania somnifera. Somnifera means tend towards sleep. This will not make you sleepy. This will not make you tired. This will not make you groggy. But when you lie down to go to sleep, which is a basic, essential human function that every single one of us should be able to do with no effort at all, you go to sleep. And you get a deep, restful sleep, and you wake up refreshed. How cool is that? Everybody here get a great night's sleep every night? No. No, we have a pressing need for good sleep. This can help. Improves relaxation, improves reproductive health. Studies on reproductive health and on sexual function specifically are very, very fine. This is an equal opportunity hornifier for men and women. It is something that enhances sexual function overall. It is given to women in India as a matter of course by virtually every obstetrician or gynecologist. Enhances overall cardiovascular function and is an immune modulator. What is an immune modulator? An immune modulator is something that takes low immune function up and high immune function down. People always talk about boosting immune function. You don't want to do that if you've got rheumatoid arthritis. You really don't. What you want to do is bring your immune function down because your immune system is killing you in that regard. And there are a few and only a few ingenious botanicals out there, and this is one of them, that are immune modulators. Take overly high immune function that is dangerous down to a normal healthy level. Take low immune function that is dangerous up to a healthy mid-level. Everything in our bodies that is healthy happens in a mid-level. Heartbeat, you don't want it too high or too low. Temperature, you don't want it too high or too low. Blood pressure, you don't want it too high or too low. Any of 1,000 functions, you don't want them too high or too low. You want them in a healthy middle zone. And immune function is one of them. Organic cultivation, I talked about this. Full disclosure, I am an advisor to a company that makes an ashwagandha extract called KSM 66. And that's the end of that commercial. I just want you to understand why I know so much about the cultivation I'm about to show you. As I said, the tides have turned. Now there's a lot of cultivation of ashwagandha. Here is organic ashwagandha root cultivation in Rajasthan, India. This is part of thousands of acres where this medicinal plant is being cultivated. Tremendous. And you have, it's all handwork. It's all people out there, pulling this root by hand. Organic agriculture, I mean, I shouldn't even have to say it, but it's good for you, it's good for the soil, it's good for the water, it's good for the air, it's good for farm workers. Nobody except the chemical companies loses out when it comes to organic agriculture. And by building healthy soil, you also wind up with a greater concentration of nutrients and protective factors in anything you grow. And that is highly valuable. If you've ever stood in the soil of a large commercial organic farm and you've seen that all, the soil is rich and loamy, and then you go to, let's say, a conventional cornfield where the soil looks like linoleum, you can just see the difference. Organic agriculture is good in every conceivable respect, and we should be demanding this for our medicinal plants. Nobody in their right mind wants a concentration of toxic chemicals in the herbal health product they take. That's insane. So insist on organic. Push for organic because it can always be done. This just shows the planting cycle and the cultivation cycle of ashwagandha root. Basically, this stuff does not like water, which is kind of weird. I'm going to grow plants of all different kinds, but this doesn't like water. This year's ashwagandha crop, the first planting was actually ruined by heavy rains. Killed all the ashwagandha. Some people replanted. There will be a shortage this year because of those heavy rains. But this plant really doesn't like water. So here in the field, I get to go to the harvesting and of cultivation of all kinds of plants. And I never tire of it, whether it's olive plantations in Morocco or Siberian rhodiola or investigating certain medicinal plants in the forest of Congo or whatever. I'm just constantly fascinated by this. So here is harvesting of ashwagandha. Ashwagandha tells you when it's ready, as most plants do. It's ready when this beautiful green plant turns yellow. It's like going, ready to harvest over here. Yo, dude, harvest me. It's very clear. It's time to harvest. These women who are grown up together in their communities go out in the fields and they harvest. And I will say this, the wages that people get for harvesting or cultivating botanicals all over the world generally are very low. But the number of women employed in the botanical industry is such that this industry proves to be one of the greatest supporters of women's economic health and their ability to support their families than almost any industry I know. So I'm very, very proud of our industry for at least doing that. And though I want to see the wages go up and the prices go up for every decent herbal product so that more people can get paid more who do the back-breaking labor, it's good that this does provide jobs for women. So these are fresh ashwagandha roots. They kind of look like white carrots. The tops are chopped off. Just a little piece of wood, a little hatchet, just chop off the tops. That's how it happens. They're pulled, they're chopped, then they're ready to be washed in clean, pure water and dried in the sun. One of the things that I fight for with as many projects as I can is for benefit sharing. If a company derives a medicinal plant from a group of people and makes a lot of money on it, then I believe there's a responsibility to share those benefits with the people who did the hard back-breaking labor out in the hot sun. That only makes sense. In this instance, community schools, medicine, private business initiatives are all supported by revenues from this. I mentioned yesterday I've been involved in a free dental boat, free internet cafe at 15,000 feet in the Andes Mountains of Peru, helping to rebuild schools, build toilet facilities, helping to establish maternity clinics, basic stuff. And all these things can be accomplished rather easily, actually. It's not complex. You just have to show up and do the work. So in this instance, revenues from this particular extract go back to the community. That helps the community to flourish. It also naturally creates a certain amount of loyalty. Ayurveda, because it is a primary healthcare system that is highly revered in India, has its own national center in Jaipur, India. Jaipur is known as the Pink City. Anybody been to Jaipur? Okay, a couple people. There are these pink palaces there. It's really very, very cool. It's sort of old India, if you will, because so much of India today is like any other city. Modern skyscrapers, lots of traffic, people driving like insane people. It's just almost like Chicago. So this is the National Institute of Ayurveda. I talked with health experts there. There's been some attempt in the natural products industry to include above ground parts of the plants, which hasn't been done in 4,000 years. They're very adamant at the National Center of Ayurveda that that's not okay, that only the root is to be used. And the American Botanical Council came out with a very strong adulteration bulletin insisting that if ashwagandha is to be a legitimate product, then it has to be root only. And I show you that because there's always constant conflict and competitive strife in every business, in every endeavor that involves money, and is no different in the herbal scene. It may surprise you that herbal extraction is a monster industrial activity. I just finished up a few years ago, 21 years with a company that has 15 extraction facilities around the world. And when they extract an herb, they do 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 tons at a time. This is big business, folks. And it needs to be done correctly, and it needs to be done right. And so high-tech stainless steel extraction methods, basically garnered from the pharmaceutical industry, are part and parcel of making good, clean, healthy, effective, herbal concentrations that always have the same level of active principles. Extensive clinical studies. I'm going to just briefly go through this. We have human studies on anxiety, on sexual function, on cardiorespiratory performance. That's VO2 max, by the way, for you athletes out there. And we see among non-professional athletes as much as an almost 6% increase in VO2 max, which is completely off the board and unexpected. But we do see that. We see actually improved strength in muscle size and muscle strength, improved energy. And I asked some researchers who were about to do a human clinical study, I believe it was actually the sleep study, and I said, listen, I'm curious to know if people are happier. I want you to ask some questions around if they're happier after the test period, which I think was 90 days. And the guy who was doing the study design said, hey, that's kind of a great idea. So they did ask a series of questions, same questions that would be asked in psychiatric evaluations or counseling evaluations. And what they found was that, indeed, after 90 days, people were happier. They were less stressed out. They had more mental clarity. They were more sharp in focus. They got up feeling better. They slept better. They had improvements in their sex lives. So the bottom line with this is that ashwagandha proves to be very, very valuable. It proves to be tremendously safe. And I would encourage you all to give this a try if any of the benefits at all seem like they could be right for you. Now I want to turn completely in an opposite direction. I want to go to Morocco with you. I love Morocco. Been there a bunch of times, done a lot of work. And I want to say with Morocco and with Malaysia and with Congo and with many places that I've been around the world that are all or mostly Muslim, Syria, parts of other countries, parts of India, I have only met friendship and kindness and generosity. We have so much bullshit propaganda about Muslims. They're the current enemy, brown-skinned people and Muslims. And it is awful. It is awful what is happening. You can find in any group of human beings people who are not good, people who wish poorly for others. But I'm just telling you, my experience over decades, I've only been shown kindness. This is a digression alert. On my first trip to the Amazon in '97, I lived with natives on the river for a month. And I showed up with all kinds of protective clothing. Everything but that beekeeper crap, you know? And by the end of the first afternoon, I was down to what I wore for the month. A Patagonia bathing suit. No shoes, no shirt. Because everybody else was doing that. And by the way, every Weekly Reader, who knows Weekly Reader? You know Weekly Reader from school? Okay, Weekly Reader lies. They just flat out lie on two counts, but I'll mention one. One is that if you get in the water with piranhas, they will eat you and you will die. It is not true, folks. Piranhas are vegetarians unless you throw meat in the water, and then they go completely berserk. But I encountered, again, the first day, kids swimming in the water, piranhas all around, and I thought, but Weekly Reader said, and I kind of like dipped my leg in a little and took it out like, I don't want to be eaten here. You know, they said they can eat a cow in 2 minutes. Well, that's what Weekly Reader said. Of course, it turned out not to be so. They will only attack you if you're bleeding. So menstruating women, people with injuries and cuts, don't go in the water. Otherwise, you can dive into a school of piranha and they just kind of get out of your way. But the point of this digression is not swimming with piranha. I don't even know how I got there. I wanted to go see shamans. And the people I was staying with said, why do you want to go see shamans? I said, what do you mean, why do I want to go see shamans? Because they know a lot. And they were like, do they really? They had already lost a lot of that traditional knowledge. And we went around and we met with shamans all over the place. And one woman who we kind of chased around for a few days, it was one of those comical things where we'd show up someplace and go, is Maria Sina here? And they go, oh, no, man, she left about 2 hours ago. Okay, where's she going? Oh, she's going to Aranduba. Okay, and we'd go there and say, hey, is Maria Sina here? Oh, yeah, man, she was here, but she's gone now. And this went on and on for a while, and we finally caught up with her, and she was this 103-year-old woman. And she had very clear eyes and beautiful hair and soft hands. Of course, she was about this big because time kind of wears you down, okay? But she looked at me and she said, "You bridge the worlds." She'd never met me before. She didn't know anything about me. She'd gotten no introductions, but she basically sat there and told me about my work. And she said, "You need to help people to understand each other. You need to tell people about each other." When you're told that by a 103-year-old Amazonian grandmother shaman of shamans, you pay attention. And that became a real galvanizing moment for me. That became a real inspiration for me. And in all of my travels, I try to do that. I try to bridge worlds, try to not only be an ambassador of goodwill and show up not as an American expecting everything to be like it is back home. If you want it to be like back home, stay home. If you're not willing to endure the discomforts, if you're not willing to stretch yourself, if you're not willing to do what they do, don't go there. That's easy. Simple. So in any case, a lot of my work is fostering understanding. And a lot of my reason for telling people about other people is so that we generate more understanding of the lives of others who are different from us. In Morocco, oh, wait a second, where am I going here? I'm going backwards. In Morocco, saffron is a big deal. Saffron is the pistils of crocus blossoms. And right now, today, per gram, saffron is worth more than gold. So for all those people who are looking at those ads on, late night TV, you should be buying gold. No, you should be buying saffron, actually. It's going to do more for you. So it's very rare and precious. It's the single most expensive spice in the world. It's grown all over the place. Morocco, India, Greece, Spain, Italy, France, Switzerland, and on and on and on. The best saffron seems really to come from Iran, Kashmir, and Morocco, the greatest concentration of active principles in those. The Arabian Nights just kind of gushes about saffron. I love this, she outlives the moon when brightest bright. I mean, just on description alone, I want it. Just give it to me. Beautiful stuff. We know a lot about the compounds in saffron. We know that crocin is a very significant compound for cardiovascular health, for brain health, and also for enhancing the health of skin. Saffronol is what gives saffron its characteristic kind of musky aroma. It contains a bunch of other antioxidants which are familiar to you, aromatic compounds, so that's why it has such a lovely, strange, complex fragrance. Some of the big antioxidants, certainly quercetin. Quercetin is probably the most beneficial antioxidant compound out there. You want lots of quercetin in your diet? Eat onions. They're almost all quercetin. Eat onions. I went on the Dr. Oz show and advised people to eat onions. And he was so surprised. He was like, "Really? That's your best recommendation for antioxidants?" Like, absolutely. You want to live a long time? You want to live healthy? Eat onions. So it's a traditional medicine. It's been used to relieve depression. It's been used to relieve pain. It's been used to improve heart health, for anxiety, and for promoting tranquility. There was an excellent study done a few years back showing that saffron extract is helpful in slowing down the process of early stage Alzheimer's. I'm not saying it's a cure. I'm not saying it will halt the disease in its tracks. I'm saying that it helps to significantly retard the progress of early stage Alzheimer's. And if you've dealt with people who are dealing with dementia, if you've dealt with people who are dealing with Alzheimer's, any benefit is helpful. There are currently studies ongoing about enhanced cognitive function and depression and other things. I think we're going to see a great future for saffron. Fortunately, the clinical dose needed is typically around 30 milligrams, so even though saffron is quite expensive, that can be affordable. Saffron cultivation is harvested sometime between October to November, and if you've ever been in a field of crocuses, they all just open up at once. So all of a sudden it's like, hey, everybody, on high alert, and I see this all over the world. When it's harvesting time for goji berries, for example, in northern China, kids aren't in school. Parents aren't at other jobs. Everything but the restaurant stopped. Everybody's out picking goji berries because they're ripe today. And next week, they'll be rotten. This is ripe today. Next week, it'll be brown. So you have people out in the fields harvesting these crocus blossoms, doing it by hand. This is not mechanized work. Soil, altitude, rain, all kinds of conditions dictate the quality of saffron, just as they dictate the quality of apples, of hops for beer, of corn, you name it. All of these natural factors. You can look at St. John's wort from Ethiopia and St. John's wort from Germany and see double the concentration of certain actives in the Ethiopian St. John's wort. Those are growing conditions that are doing that. So the plucking the pistils is skilled labor. I'm a real hands-on guy, okay? If people are going to the waterfall barefoot, I go to the waterfall barefoot. If people are, fishing off the coral, I'm fishing off the coral. If whatever they're doing, I'm doing. If it's a fire walk, I'm fire walking. I'm terrified, but I'm fire walking. And I mean really terrified. Nobody likes stepping into a roaring pit of burning, blazing fire. It's just stupid and counterintuitive. But anyway, so I see these women plucking the pistils, and I think this can't be rocket science. How hard can it be? So they showed me, they gave me the crocus blossoms, and I sat there and just broke every single one of them. And they go, no, like this. And of course, they pick it perfectly. And I go, okay, just like this, and break it in half. So I never got the technique, and I never got the job. It takes 150,000 flowers and 250 hours of work to make 1 kilo of saffron. And that's a whole bunch of women sitting around picking pistils out like crazy. It's amazing. It's amazing the labor that goes into this. And here are the women doing this. When it is time to pluck the pistils out of the crocus blossoms, they dress up ceremonially. And they all sit down and gossip. And they laugh at you when you don't understand their language. They look at you and smile and point and laugh at you, and clearly they're making fun of something, and that's just fine. I found that an interesting thing about many native cultures, actually, that there, in not all cultures, but in many, there's this constant making fun of people. So like in Vanuatu, my friends, they'll all make fun of somebody, and that person will laugh too. And then they make fun of you, and you laugh, and then you make fun of them, and they laugh, and it's never mean-spirited, and it's just like part of the day. It's like, look at him, he's digging backwards, or whatever it is. So now I want to talk a little bit about maca. Maca is a plant with which I've been involved deeply since 1998, and I believe that this is one of the greatest and healthiest of all possible plants. It's a cruciferous plant. It grows at very high altitude, and when I say very high altitude, yeah, you can grow it at 11,000 feet, but it really likes 13, 14, 15,000 feet altitude. So it grows in the Andes, it grows in Peru, and it grows in Bolivia. There's a great trade of maca in Peru, and there is not a substantive trade of maca in Bolivia except for personal use. But this is what it looks like up in the high Andes, okay? It's lousy weather pretty much all the time. The soil is not that good. The wind will chap your face off. The sun will burn you in about 15 minutes. It's just kind of a hostile environment, and yet there are entire populations of people that live up there, and they cultivate maca as they've been doing for 2,000 years. Maca produces this kind of frilly rosette that grows very low to the ground, and it provides a variety of benefits that we know from traditional use going back the couple thousand years that it's been cultivated, and as repeated by bodies like the International Potato Institute and various scientists around the world. It increases energy, it increases stamina, it boosts libido, it defends against stress, and it relieves uncomfortable symptoms of menopause, including night sweats and other things that women do not enjoy as they go through that process. Maca is a food. I've brought reporters up to the Andes. No reporter more timid than one from CNN who was just so deathly afraid of trying anything that wasn't being served in a midtown restaurant she could barely control herself. And when we were served maca cake, which is like one of the best things you can possibly eat, yes, it's vegan, it's gluten-free, it's everything. You know, it's all the right stuff, okay? It violates nobody's principles. Just delicious. Just delicious. They make breads, cakes, cookies, pies, hot drinks, cold drinks, soups, gravies, stews, everything out of maca. Infants eat it every single day. This is safe as rice. This is beyond safe. So, and it imparts these very interesting benefits. It takes a little bit of work to get up there. The main road is a road that's mostly populated by mining trucks, and especially when you're going down and you've got an 80-ton mining truck behind you loaded with pieces of rock half the size of your house, it's a little spooky. And all along the road, there are these little rock cairns where people have died going off because they just kind of like forgot to do anything about guardrails anyplace, just sort of like an extra expense that they couldn't afford. So it's a challenge to get there. This is a maca trader that I've been working with since 1998. Sergio and I have also extensively traveled throughout the Amazon. We've been on about a dozen rivers together. We've initiated endless community projects together. He and his family are my dear friends. I stay at their home when I go there. And he's been a phenomenal ally and traveling partner and explorer with me. He's helped me to make many of my projects come true. So this is fresh maca. It looks like a turnip or a parsnip. And it smells like horseradish. When you break it open, it's got this kind of funky, sharp smell. When you dry it, and the scientific drying method is very simple. When it is that hard, it's dry. Okay? It's very simple. When you can't press your thumbnail into it, just as I can't on this piece of wood, it's dry enough. And then it is ground and grated into flour, and then it's made into 1,000 different things. This is, since the popularization of maca, starting 98, there has been a tremendous economic boom up in the Andes. Projects that I've been involved with and others have helped with things like paving road, bringing in electricity, helping people to have heat in their homes, improving the school, buying school uniforms for kids, setting up free dentistry, medicine, paying teachers more, a lot of community activities. And people have, in various communities where there's a strong concentration of maca growers and dryers and processors, they have really flourished as a result of this trade. And it means they can have some of the comforts that we have. It's very romantic to imagine Amazonian natives running through the forest with spears in their hands and little grass skirts, chasing animals on the hunt. That's not happening, folks. Every Amazon native I know has a cell phone. For real. And they have satellite dishes on their houses. And they want flush toilets. They don't actually think it's really fun to crap in the woods. They want plumbing. They don't really want to have to walk a long distance to get fresh, potable water. This whole romance we have is just a fantasy. The world has changed all around us. And so, as these people gain some economic benefit, they get nicer clothes. After about 4 years in the maca trade, I went back up there. Everybody had better clothing. The kids had better clothing. The adults had better clothing. They didn't have holes in their coats anymore. And it was like, good, good. And it has just gotten better. And now many of the kids have gone to college. And this is a wonderful thing. These two women I've been photographing since 1998. Every time I turn a camera on them, they just burst out laughing. They can barely stand it. There's that funny gringo guy taking a picture of us again. How funny can it get? We know a lot about the nutrition of maca. We know that it's high in natural carbohydrates. It's got about 12% protein. It's rich in minerals. It is the only known source of two novel groups of compounds, the macamides and the macaines, which seem to be responsible for the stamina-enhancing, mood-promoting, sex-enhancing benefits of maca. Maca harvesting is all performed by hand. The whole community goes out there. Everybody's out there. Now look, I am not a fan of child labor, okay? And I think children should never be forced to work. But, when you see whole communities out doing the olive harvest, whole communities, and the kids running around having an absolute blast. And when they get asked, like, could you bring that basket over the scale? They're like, yeah, because they want to participate. They want to be part of it. This is a big event. So I'm not suggesting we should take a different look at child labor laws, but I am saying that in communities where you have this kind of thing, where the biggest thing happening all year out there is the harvest, you got everybody out there. You got the grannies, you got the grandpas, you got the little kids, you got everybody. And it's a wonderful community scene. Maca is life for these people. It is nutrition. It is economic benefit. It is their way out of poverty. They have to clean it by hand, typically stack it in a solar dryer, store it if there are a few good, clean warehouses up in the Andes. A lot of people just store maca under their beds. That's the truth. Physicians recommend maca to boost sex drive, improve energy, relieve uncomfortable symptoms of menopause. It's used for Prozac sufferers. It's used to enhance stamina and sex drive. And we also see enhanced energy and overall athletic performance when people consume maca. Mountain climbers who climb the Andes, they keep maca in their pockets and they chew on it, just as mountain climbers in the Himalayas keep rhodiola rosea root in their pockets and chew on that as they climb. We did a free dental office for many years with this project. Anybody could come, whether they were a maca grower or not. Anybody could get free dental care, and we did it for about 7 years or so before we lost our funding. So it's a great food. It's a great crop. It's something, if you went up there and you asked them to grow apples, I mean, first of all, you couldn't because it's too high altitude, but if you could, that would give them no pride. But giving them something that is, helping them with something that is part of their tradition, that they love, that is meaningful to them, that's something that they feel very proud of. Now I want to turn my attention to rhodiola rosea, and I want to bring you to the Xinjiang Autonomous Region. And if Xinjiang sounds familiar, it's because currently that is where the Chinese government has imprisoned, tortured, in some cases killed, and otherwise utterly destroyed the culture of the Weger people, who are Turkestani in descent, who are not Han Chinese, who have lived peacefully in that area for a long, long, long time, and with whom I have spent time. And I cannot tell you today what is happening with these people, except that I know their trade and their lives have been destroyed and they've been detained in prisons. Rhodiola is known as golden root. It's found in Siberia and China. It is another adaptogen, helping you to adapt to all forms of physical and mental stress. I grew up swimming in the ocean of Maine, the Maine coast. If you know anything about Maine, nobody ever says, gosh, that Maine ocean water sure is warm. I actually had a friend from the South Seas, brought him to the beach. He put his foot in the water, and he was so upset with me. He felt that I had done something terrible to him by even making him feel that water, because he came from a place where it was like bath water. I found after taking rhodiola for about 6 months that I could double my time in the rather cool ocean waters of Maine. That's adaptation. That's real. That's a big deal. Double my time. I've noticed my cold sensitivities way down. I'll often go out in a t-shirt in cold, cold weather, and I don't stay out there for days, but I'm fine. That's just because of the adaptogens. It enjoys hundreds of efficacy studies. It's unquestionably one of the most beneficial plants in the world. This slide that you see is a Weger harvester hand harvesting rhodiola rosea root in the Tian Shan mountain range right up against Kazakhstan. This region used to be called Outer Mongolia. They have 2 months to harvest this. You notice the snow behind him, okay? This is end of July. They have July and August and no other time. Because before July, too much snow. After August, too much snow. You can't just go grousing around in the snow looking for rhodiola. They dig this stuff by hand. They're up there at sunrise. They work all day long. They stop and eat a little bit of food. They bring their rhodiola rosea root down to the plains in bags, and there all the fun and the negotiating begins that I will show you in just a moment. We know a lot about the phytochemicals. We know that there's a group of compounds called the rosavins that appear to be primarily responsible for the adaptogenic, energy-enhancing, stamina-promoting, mind-clearing properties of this remarkable plant. It shows very, very good efficacy for helping men with ED, shows very good efficacy for restoring a normal, healthy menstrual cycle. It's quite remarkable, and it's something that you don't have to wait a long time to feel. It combats stress, so again, that getting off of an angry horse sensation. It is antioxidant. It demonstrates some anti-cancer properties, and we really can't do anything about that. It enhances immune function overall. It is also immunomodulatory. It has a great quickening effect on the mind. I like to think of rhodiola as mental index, okay? It sharpens your concentration. It makes you more alert. It relieves depression. It lowers anxiety. It helps you with short-term and long-term recall. You ever have the experience of reading a paragraph in a book or a magazine and then realizing that's the 4th or 5th time you've read that? I do that on planes. I'm like, God, that sounds so familiar. Oh, right, I've been reading this paragraph over and over again because I'm dopey and tired. Okay, if you can go 2 hours reading with rhodiola, maybe it's 4. The difference is really stark. So this is a mighty, mighty herb. Doctors Richard Brown and Patricia Gerbarg, he of Columbia University Medical Center, she of New York University Hospital, wrote the Rhodiola Revolution, showing their work using rhodiola rosea extract clinically in their practices in place of the dangerous and often deadly antidepressant drugs that don't work and the anti-anxiety drugs that cause anxiety. Look to the 2005, I think it's June, but I'm not sure about the month, issue of the Journal of the American Medical Association, where they did a meta-study of antidepressants and concluded, this is JAMA, okay, this is the people that theoretically we don't like and they don't like us. And they basically said antidepressants don't work any better than a sugar-based placebo pill. This is one of the keynote studies on antidepressants ever, and you can just imagine how much play it got out there in the medical community. Not much at all. So biological activities continued. Strength, endurance, physical work capacity, coordination. It's great for athletes. It improves your reaction time. If you're recovering from something, you've been exhausted, you've been fatigued, this will help to bring back your vitality for real. I mentioned menstrual irregularity and erectile function. You feel this stuff. As with ashwagandha, as with maca, you feel it. And I love promoting the botanicals that people feel, because if you do that, people have a good experience, then when it's time for one of the botanicals you don't feel, ginkgo, echinacea, etc., which may still be highly valuable, people are more receptive because they've had a good herbal experience. So these guys come down out of the mountains with their bags of rhodiola rosea on their motorcycles, and they go to the buyers' homes. And it's this game. They kind of come up and they sort of lean back in their motorcycles and they go, so what lousy price are you paying today, huh? And the person will go, oh, such and such, and they'll go, to hell with that, and they'll drive off, which means absolutely nothing. That was just the opening shot. And then eventually they drive back and they're like, and they go back and forth, and they haggle and they settle on a price, and everybody's really actually happy. But if you don't haggle, then you're kind of a jerk. So you have to. And then the buyers take all the rhodiola out of the bags and make sure there aren't any bricks in there. Oh, that happens. Bricks, rocks, logs. You don't want to pay for that. So you go through it, and then what happens, come back. What happens is they weigh it right in front of the harvester, say, okay, this is 23 kilos, and our price today is this, and they get out a calculator, and they do it, and they show that, and everybody agrees, and they write it down, and then they pull out the cash. This is a cash industry. You don't say to these people, great, got it written down here, pay you next Wednesday. No. All over the world, whether it's ashwagandha, whether it's rhodiola, whether it's maca, whether it's kava, whether it's one plant or another. You show up with your plant, you get it weighed, you get paid. It is a cash and carry business. What I'd like to do now is turn to a different way of, or a different part of the body, and that is the largest organ that we possess, and that is our skin. And I want to tell you about the number one most effective skin-enhancing and skin-healing substance of any kind on planet Earth. Now, it's a big claim. I've studied tamanu oil for decades. I've poured through every bit of science on it, and I am utterly convinced, having given away, if I had made money on the hundreds and hundreds of samples of tamanu oil that I've given to people, we might be having this conversation on my yacht. But, I have accumulated a huge body of knowledge and evidence about this, and I will tell you right out that except for absolutely eliminating eczema and psoriasis, which it will not do, though it will relieve their discomfort in minutes, put it on bites, burns, cuts, stings, nicks, dinks, dents, abrasions, bruises, you name it, it heals it. Zits, I went to Estee Lauder and said, this heals pimples. And they told me to get lost. And then they called me back about a year later and they said, this stuff heals pimples. I said, really? Wow, that's so cool. What a great thing. What a great discovery you figured out from me. And they developed 11 products around it, all for acne. This stuff works. This is the big kahuna of skin healing agents. And it comes from Vanuatu, South. Actually, it comes from all over. It comes from all over the Pacific Islands. And these tamanu trees grow in coastal areas. They thrive in wet, salty sand, in which most other trees would perish. So this is Vanuatu, South Pacific. You see a very, very, very stressed out environment, heavily industrial. Beautiful waters. It's got about 100 islands. It's in the middle of the South Pacific. It's got a population of about 275,000 people. It's pretty chill. It's also the epicenter of kava, and we don't really have time for that, but kava is part of the culture and communities of Pacific Island people. That is a giant tamanu tree. It's actually hard to really get the scale of this, but about 12 of us stood fingertip to fingertip around the trunk. It took that many of us to touch fingers. So they grow in salty sand. They have beautiful green leaves. They have lovely white flowers. I'm sorry that's such a crappy photo. I wish you could see my friend and I are there, but I don't know why the light is so bad on that. In any case, the tamanu trees have these apricot-sized fruits, and these fruits are a little bit of a rind of fruit around a great big seed, and that is called a drupe. An olive, for example, is a drupe. It's a big seed with some fruit around it. Acai is a drupe, a big seed with some fruit around it. And it is the case that tamanu is mostly a seed with a little fruit around it. These fruits drop to the ground. They don't need to be harvested. You don't even need to touch the trees. You just pick them up off the ground. Zero environmental impact. After the rind is rotted away off of these nuts, this is what they look like. The collection is done by native people. Most botanicals, people get paid by weight. It's no different with tamanu. So people in villages go out on the beach, not a bad place to work. They go out with a cotton sack. They come back with a full sack. Gets weighed, they get cash. And for indigenous native people in native communities, they're not doing one thing. Not like, oh, I'm an accountant or I'm a this or that. You know, they're growing some scallions for sale. They're fishing. They're selling some fish. They're collecting tamanu nuts. Maybe they're harvesting some kava. Maybe they're doing a little bit of construction. People piece together a living from often dozens of different factors over time. So these are the tamanu nuts as they are freshly out of the shell. They're blonde. And here's the crazy thing about them. They don't have much oil in them. You take a fresh tamanu nut and you cut it open, got a little tiny little bit of oil, not so much. But you let that sit and dry in a dryer, and it becomes very, very, very rich with and sticky with oil. We know a lot about the composition of the oil, and we know that it is profoundly anti-inflammatory, which accounts for some of its healing properties, but it's also antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral. You got toenail fungus, you put tamanu oil on it for a couple of days, you're not going to have toenail fungus. I've seen people with growths on their faces and other parts of their bodies just put tamanu oil on every single day, and those things go away. I can't over-exaggerate the benefits of this oil. I don't know why it isn't the number one being used in cosmetics today. Nothing else comes close. It is a cicatrizing agent. There are types of wounds that will not heal. You get bitten by certain types of venomous creatures like centipedes, you will often get an open wound that will not close for months. You put tamanu oil on it, it causes granulation, the formation of new healthy skin cells. That causes cicatrization, the formation of new healthy skin tissue. You put tamanu oil on skin, it causes the formation of new healthy collagen, therefore keeping skin healthier and more youthful and more elastic. It's great for fine wrinkles, heals acne, reduces scarring, and on and on and on. And by the way, I don't make any money on tamanu oil. This isn't a pitch, so I'll get rich. I mean, that would be kind of a cool side effect, but it doesn't seem really in the cards with this. But you should know about this. You should know about tamanu oil, because this is the agent for the largest organ in your body. These are tamanu nuts drying in a simple solar dryer, and they hang out in there for a couple of weeks, and then they get this like golden brown, as you can see. And this is when they are rich with oil. Sometimes women are out doing this drying outside, and they'll turn the nuts, and if they find anything that has any fungus, any black spots on it, they throw those out so that the oil won't be contaminated in any way. This is the high-tech extraction of tamanu oil. Basically, just a press. Just a press. You grind up these nuts a little bit, you put them in a press, and then you apply pressure. No heat, no chemicals, no nothing. And this is what it looks like. Simple, very simple. That's the extraction process, and that's the oil. Now, I'm very fortunate to have some time, some further time here, and I will take some questions, but I want to make some further comments. We are the most drugged out nation on earth. Our use of antidepressants and anti-anxiety drugs as barely 8% of the global population exceeds all of the other use of antidepressants and I look like Bernie Sanders doing this. And all the others and the anxiety drugs and all the political people who've been doing this to us for so long. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I like him. He's from Vermont. What's not to like? Vermont's got cows and it's got Bernie. Where the hell was I? Where was I even going with that? What's that? Oh, antidepressants. Thank you. Good God. And mind-sharpening agents, too, to help you remember shit. Wow. That's so bad. But thank you all. So the thing is that we are completely and hopelessly drugged out. And we mistakenly take drugs for things we have no business taking drugs for. You have a relative who dies. Of course you're sad. Of course you're heartbroken. Of course you're grieving. Be sad, be heartbroken, grieve, and when that's done, go live your life. But don't become a drug addict on top of it. That's insane. People here are not only, well, look, we're all looking for different things. There's no person on earth who has it all figured out. There's no person on earth who has it all perfect. And the likelihood of having everything all perfect is pretty slim. But we've learned a lot over time. We know we are natural beings. What's the difference? I'll tell you two differences between natural plant-based remedies and drugs. We did not co-evolve with Prozac. No, we didn't. But we did co-evolve with absolutely every compound in every herb. They are part of our biochemistry. You know, plants make antioxidant compounds to defend their own cells from premature destruction due to exposure to heat, light, air, moisture, and time. When we take antioxidant compounds into our bodies, our cells enjoy greater protection from oxidation, basically from the rusting of the cells. Many plants are vascular, and they move nutrients through a network of veins. Well, that's what happens in us now, isn't it? Moving nutrients through a network of veins. Plants are part of our biology, and we exist on this earth because plants very fortunately generate something we like a lot, and that's called oxygen. And by the way, the burning down and the destruction of the great rainforests on earth, which is going on faster than it has ever gone before, means utter catastrophic disruption of the environment, reduced oxygen production, greater amounts of carbon in the atmosphere. It's not good. And there are people out there who would insist, oh, it's really not as bad, or somehow somebody's going to take care of it. If we don't all do our part in every way we can, whether it's writing our Congress people or engaging in, community sustainable agricultural projects that are organic or whatever we can do, we will lose the whole kit. That's real. That's true. That's what's happening. And if we succumb to the pharmaceutical propaganda, then we'll all be just increasingly sicker over time, and that's completely unacceptable. This is our time. This is a time when the science is with us. This is a time when the traditional knowledge has been very well documented in many cases. This is a time when communication is easier than it has ever been. I can reach out to my friends in Siberia and know that I'm going to get a message back in 10 hours or so. Yeah, come stay at our apartment in Novosibirsk. That's kind of amazing. We can get to places more quickly than we ever have been able to before. We can bridge worlds. So I believe that we have the second thing I want to say about pharmaceuticals and herbs, and I want to describe it to you this way. I want you to imagine a pyramid like this, and on top of it, a pyramid like this. And in the center is pain, okay? We want to deal with pain. If you take ibuprofen, naproxen, acetaminophen, 1 or 2 times on rare occasion, they're not going to kill you. You take them on a regular basis, you're going to have a host of negative effects. Maybe liver damage, maybe kidney damage, other disorders, a cascade of negative effects. But you will relieve the pain. If you take curcumin, for example, you will not only relieve the pain and do so in a broader way, because it's not just a COX-2 inhibitor, it also works with NF-kappa B, 5-LOX, and all the other inflammatory markers and enzymes in the body. But you'll also get other things that happen that you didn't necessarily ask for, like enhanced neuroprotection, your body actually producing more compounds that protect your nervous system, enhanced cognitive benefits. We know from human studies that curcumin actually enhances mental function, and on, an up cascade of benefits that we never even asked for. That's the difference between most pharmaceuticals and most botanicals. There are botanicals that are toxic, and only an idiot makes poison ivy tea. That's really not okay. I'm very fortunate, or unfortunate, I've managed to find and become a little bit too intimate with most of the poison ivy-like plants in the world, I'm sorry to say. Had an awful experience in Ghana many years ago. I was hiking in the forest with a guide, and there was this little teeny little vine, almost like thread, And it kind of caught on my shirt with these little prickles, and I sort of moved it aside, and we kept on going. And the next day, I had this bandolier of angry red welts going across, and that lasted for about 3 weeks, and that was like the worst poison ivy ever. I had another experience in India where I sent my laundry out. This is in the 80s. And it came back, and it was clean, and it was nice, and all that bit, and I put it on, and I developed this. I was convinced that I had some really sick, evil, like life-threatening crud, because right here and on the back of my neck, I had these patches of this nasty, angry red welts, and I went to a dermatologist in New Delhi, and I said, what the heck's going on? Am I like dying of something? And he looked at me and said, you allergic to poison ivy? I said, yeah. But there's no PI here. I know it on site from 100 yards. He goes, have you had your laundry done? I said, well, yeah. He said, let me look at the tag in your T-shirt. There was a little black X. He said, see, what happens is the laundry wallas, they need to mark your laundry so they know it's yours, right? So they do a little mark, an X or a Y or something on the tags of your clothing, but they can't afford pens. So they use Inknut instead. Inknut contains urushiol. Urushiol is what's in poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac, etc. So you get all these Americans and Russians who were going to India at that time, getting their laundry done because they want to be clean, upstanding, responsible citizens, and wind up getting these hideous, hideous cases of poison ivy. So I am not suggesting that all plants are utterly safe. Foxglove makes digitalis. It is very, very useful for the heart. Can help people to stay alive. But if you were to take a fistful of foxglove and make a tea out of it, you would die. You'd just plain die. That's not all right. Death is an unacceptable adverse effect, no matter what causes it. And I hate those commercials for drugs. Because they go, so now they're doing it at the beginning at you remember 33, 45, and 78 with records? Yes, okay. So they take a 33 statement and they put it on 78, right? May cause heart disease, seizures, disorders, spasms. You may erupt. You may say strange, awful, terrible things. You may stab yourself. It may cause suicide. And they go through this whole thing. Then, so many people are turning to the little green pill. Don't be misled. Don't be misled. I could turn this into a hostage crisis and go on for days because I have so much to share. I won't do that, but I'm happy to take some questions for the next 13 minutes that we have. Yes? Loudly, please. What do I recommend for what? Diabetes. Okay. First of all, not eating refined carbohydrates. Secondly, exercising every single day. Thirdly, forgetting any sodas, whether they're sweetened with sugar or they're sweetened with artificial sweeteners, which do exactly the same thing in the body. Monitoring your blood sugar. There are some very good botanicals out there that can help to regulate blood sugar better. Certainly you would want to look at a chromium picolinate to help to stabilize blood sugar. I would say that many of the good herbal books, for example, Dr. James Duke's The Green Pharmacy, gives some good advice on anti-diabetic herbs. It's really a combination of diet, herbs, and exercise. A lot of it, my father was a type 1 diabetic, so I grew up learning that diet was utterly essential to regulating blood sugar. I would say that bitter melon, which is one of the Asian herbs, it's a food and an herb, shows very good benefits for helping to regulate blood sugar. And I think that there are other agents worth looking into as well. Another question? Yes? Do I have names of companies for the herbs that I talked about here? What I can tell you is that KSM-66 ashwagandha is available in about 650 products. You want 600 milligrams a day because that's the dosage that's been used in 15 or 17 human clinical studies. For rhodiola rosea, I would probably turn to a standardized extract from Nature's Way. I just happen to trust them a lot. In terms of saffron, there is a product called Active Inside, which is somewhat new on the market, and I like them. I like their science. I think they do a very good job. And in terms of tamanu oil, you'll find tamanu oils online. There's no particular large company or recognizable company that I can recommend. For a time, my friends and I did True Tamanu with New Chapter, but they're not doing that anymore, so I honestly don't know who to recommend on that score. Another question, yes? Oh, Maca. I like Navitas a lot. I like Navitas. I think they do a very good job with certified organic Maca.
Miss.
Ashwagandha raises high blood pressure.
Somebody told her a while ago that ashwagandha raises high blood pressure. I'd love to see the science on that, because I haven't. I know of no such effect. Yes?
Please wait.
I mentioned what?
You mentioned, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of good things today about it's safe and you can start taking it right away, but how can you, I hear a lot of people say they're afraid to try new things because they're already taking prescription drugs. So how do you know what's going to mix or not mix or cause a problem?
The American Herbal Products Association has good guidelines on herb-drug interactions. You'll find some of similar information put out by the American Botanical Council. Both have websites. American Herbal Products Association is APA, A-H-P-A. American Botanical Council is ABC. Their publication is Herbalgram. They do a tremendous job. You'll find good herb-drug interactions. But I would also say this, and I know this is contradictory to a lot of the advice you're given, and that really matters very little to me. The question is not, should you take safe, time-tested, proven effective botanicals when you are taking toxic, potentially damaging drugs? The question is, should you be taking toxic, potentially damaging drugs in place of safe, effective botanicals? The drugs have one advantage: speed. Okay? That's real. If you've got a headache and you take 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, in 20 minutes you're probably not going to have a headache. And it may take you an hour with curcumin. If you really want to get an erection, Viagra will get you there. Whereas Tonkat Ali, maybe you have to take it for a week or more before it really kicks in and you regain erectile function. Speed is the only advantage of the pharmaceuticals. And yes, as comments were made yesterday, there are circumstances in the emergency room. Look, I've had a near-fatal car accident. I've had some devastating accidents. That is not when I've chosen to go to my herbalist. That is not when I've chosen to go drink some wheatgrass juice and get a reflexology session. It's when I've chosen to go to the emergency room, get my clothing cut off of me by a team of people who mop up the blood and give me the drugs I need to stop infection. So we must keep in mind, we have extraordinary trauma medicine, but we have lousy chronic health care medicine. Yes?
Miss.
What's that? Eye floaters. Don't know what to do for them, but I like to lie in the sun and watch them go around. Yes.
I was wondering, where could one possibly get ashwagandha seeds, saffron, rhodiola, and tamanu seeds?
The best seed catalog that I know is J. Hudson, the initial J, Hudson Seed Catalog from La Honda, California. Their catalog of medicinal plant seeds and heirloom plant seeds is the best that I know of. So I would look to them.
Okay, and one more question. Which one was it gave the 6% to the VO2 max. Was it ashwagandha or saffron?
It was ashwagandha. But
Ashwagandha.
keep in mind, that is with non-elite athletes. If you had an elite athlete, if you saw a 0.5% gain in VO2 max, frankly, that would be pretty spectacular. That could mean a second off of a time.
For sure.
With average people who exercise, you can get up to about, I think it's like 5.67% increase in VO2 max. But don't think that that's going to apply to a Usain Bolt or a Jackie Joyce or Joyner Kersey, because it's not.
Okay.
Yes?
For sleep issues, would you recommend going a CBD route or more the plant-based? What's your
Well, okay.
recommendation for any of that?
First of all, CBD is a red herring, okay? And what I mean by that is that we should not be talking CBD. That's like saying, that's talking about caffeine instead of talking about coffee. Okay, CBD is a single component in a multi-cannabinoid hemp oil. And we see people selling CBD isolate, which is crap, which doesn't have all of the other support compounds that you have in the natural hemp oil. So what I would be looking for is certified organic hemp oil with a concentration of CBD and the other dozen or so cannabinoids that go along with it. And there are companies out there that are doing this right, Manitoba Harvest, Barleans, Verdant Oasis, etc. I think I've been involved with cannabis in all forms since, the 60s actually. And I've been on top of the research with this, and it's quite extraordinary, and definitely our time has come with cannabis. I would say if you try a good CBD-rich hemp oil and see what it does for you. But I would also say that ashwagandha is quite spectacular, and you would do no harm to try both. Anything to lower high blood pressure? Well, we know that meditation and engaging in deliberate relaxation methods helps to bring high blood pressure down. We know that with certainty. We know that you can reduce high blood pressure by limiting your intake of salt. We know that moderate exercise on a regular basis, getting out and, I'm not talking about going to the gym and pounding iron, okay? If you do that, great. But I'm talking about getting out and taking a walk. Take a walk. That will also potentially help. I personally have not spent that much time paying attention to individual people's high blood pressure. What I can tell you, I'll tell you one thing. There is a population of people called the Kuna, and they live on the San Blas Islands of Panama. And they are a curious study, just like the Greenland Eskimos who have no cardiovascular disease, yet they don't eat any fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains, or seeds. Very strange. The Kuna people live on one thing, cocoa, as in chocolate. They live on it because it's the only thing they can afford and it's all around them. What they do is they take a pot of water, they boil it, they take about 5 or 6 bananas, throw them in, stir them up until they're all broken up. Then they take a huge amount of cocoa beans that have been freshly roasted. They grind those up on one of those little table grinders. They put that into the pot. They cook it and cook it and cook it and cook it and cook it until it's like gravy. They drink about 4 or 5 cups of this a day, and that is the diet that they live on. And according to a team of Harvard University medical researchers that has been on this population for decades now, they have no incidence of cardiovascular disease. So heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure, 16 common forms of cancer, and type 2 diabetes. They are living on chocolate, folks. And it turns out that the flavonoids in cocoa are among the healthiest substances you can possibly put in your body. That is something that reduces high blood pressure. But I would say this to you. Going out and buying a bunch of Hershey bars is not going to do it for you. Doing Dutched cocoa, which has all of the antioxidant value of it utterly destroyed, is a waste of time and will do nothing for you. You want low sugar, no sugar, certified organic cocoa, better if it's cocoa powder, put that into a smoothie, drink that every day, you may just see a reduction in high blood pressure.
Hello.
She's asked like 3 questions. Because she's not waiting her turn, she's asked 3
The
questions.
woman is saying that she heard that it's good to boil the bananas with the skins
That's why I'm
on.
taking her microphone.
I've never seen that. I truly don't know.
That's not fair.
I want to just finish up here with a couple of closing.
About ashwagandha, that you recommended that amount daily. Is that amount the root powder, or what is it? Or is better to
What are you
take
talking about?
ashwagandha?
Ashwagandha.
Yes.
I'm recommending 600 milligrams of ashwagandha extract per day, standardized to 5% withanolides, which is the group of marker compounds I described. That's the amount that's been used in 17 different very successful human clinical studies. 600 milligrams per day of ashwagandha extract, standardized to 5% withanolides. We're out of time. I want to thank you all very much. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you today, and I appreciate you very much. Thank you.